Alright, 3.1 secant slopes. Basically, this is the average rate of change. So anytime you see the average rate of change, we're really just talking about a secant slope. What is a secant? Real quick. Secant is a trig function, but in this context, it is related to the trig function. But in this context, what a secant line is simply a line that intersects some curve, some graph at 2 points. So here you have point x, f of x. And then if you went over some distance of h, right, if you went over some distance of h, if this was x, this would be x plus h. And then this would be f of x, and this height would be f of x plus h. So in some distance here, we've got 2 points now, and all we're doing is we're drawing a line straight through those 2 points. That is called a secant line. And eventually we're going to start talking about tangent lines, lines that just touch there at 1 point. But this is just a secant line. Just touches it at 2 points. So we're specifically looking for the slope of this secant line. Well, we've talked about slopes since pre-algebra, right? You've used m to define slope. You used rise over run. You may have seen delta y over delta x, or dy over dx, which the d has often stand for delta, which means change. You've seen this equation, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And maybe you've even seen this one, f of x2 minus f of x1 over x2 minus x1. These are all just ways of talking about slope. And remember, the general thing is some change in y over some change in x, right? Some difference of y over the difference of x. That's it. Well, I'm going to give you two new ways to think about slope. And that is in terms of x and x plus h. See, if we had an x plus h, so we could do, this would kind of like be our y2, so we would say f of x plus h minus f of x over x plus h minus x. Well, you should see right away that those x's would cancel out and be an x minus an x. And so this would be the definition of slope that I want you to start being familiar with. It won't always look like this. We might still sometimes use something like this. But this is something I want you to be familiar with because we're going to start seeing this a lot more frequently. All right, well, with that in mind, let's try and see if we can answer these questions. And keep in mind, you're probably not going to have a numerical answer for these questions. You're going to have some expression, some algebraic expression.